Today we're going to jump into a really radical idea about how you actually change the world. It comes from Sayyid Qutb's massive work, In the Shade of the Quran, and it's all about a single strategic choice made right at the start of the Islamic call, a choice that, honestly, defied all common sense.
Okay, so let's dive right in. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of someone trying to start a revolution back in 7th century Arabia. The world around you? It's a mess. It's fractured, it's unjust, and it's basically stuck between two giant superpowers. You have a message you believe can fix everything, but you've got to make that first move. So what's your opening play? Right. Where do you put your energy to get the ball rolling and build a movement that's actually going to last? The answer seems like it should be obvious, but as we're about to see, the path that was chosen was anything but. At the time, there were three very practical, very appealing options just sitting there on the table. You could try to rally the tribes together under a nationalist flag, you could declare a kind of class war against the rich, or you could launch a big crusade against all the moral problems in society. Each one of these had a clear enemy and promised some kind of immediate, tangible payoff.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. None of these paths were taken, and the source we're digging into today argues that this wasn't some mistake. It was a deliberate strategy. So let's break down exactly why each of these seemingly perfect starting points was completely rejected.
So first up, a call for freedom. Arabia was literally squeezed between two massive empires, the Byzantines and the Persians. Uniting all the tribes to kick them out? That would have been incredibly popular. But here's the catch. The source argues this would have just swapped a foreign tyranny for a local Arab one. See, the ultimate goal wasn't to empower one nation over another, but to establish this core principle that the entire earth belongs to God and God alone. Okay, so what about social justice? The gap between the super-rich elite and everybody else was just massive. A movement to redistribute wealth would have gotten the support of the masses, like overnight. The problem, though, when you don't have a shared belief in some higher purpose, that kind of justice is just enforced by power, not by conscience. It ends up breeding resentment and greed instead of creating a truly just society where people give because they believe it's the right thing to do. And that third option, a campaign for moral reform. Society was filled with problems. So launching a cleanup campaign seems like a total no-brainer, right? But the source makes this absolutely crucial point. What are you basing these morals on? Without a solid divine foundation, your values become completely unstable. There's no system of real accountability, no ultimate authority, and no real reason to follow the rules beyond just social pressure. So, if the call wasn't about nationalism, and it wasn't about class struggle, and it wasn't even about morality, at least not as a starting point, what in the world was it about? If you strip away all those practical, popular causes, what are you even left with? You're left with one single abstract idea. An idea that didn't promise people land, or wealth, or even immediate moral purity. Nope. Instead, it went after something much, much deeper. The very concept of authority itself. The very first move was this declaration, La ilaha illallah, which means there is no deity worthy of worship other than God. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a statement of faith. But in the context of 7th century Arabia, it was a political earthquake. You see, the Arabs of that time, who knew their language inside and out, they understood exactly what this meant. The word ilah, or deity, also meant sovereignty, the right to rule. So to declare that there is no deity but God was to declare that all the other authorities, the priests, the tribal chiefs, the rich aristocrats, were illegitimate. All power and every part of life, from your conscience to your business deals, now belong to God alone.
So, how did that go over? Well, as you can probably imagine, the powerful men of Makkah did not take this challenge to their authority lightly. And their reactions, they tell us everything. They show that they understood the political threat perfectly.
This historical period is called the Jahiliyyah, or the era of ignorance. And the voices from this time, which were recorded in historical sources, are incredibly revealing. They weren't really arguing about theology, they were arguing about power. Take this guy, Abu Jahl, one of the main leaders of the opposition. His private confession wasn't about disbelief, it was pure tribal politics. He basically admits his clan was in a status competition with the Prophet's clan, and the idea that their rivals now had a prophet, that was a political loss they just could not stomach.
But others were more conflicted. Another leader, Abu Sufyan, was actually caught secretly listening to the Quran being recited. When he was confronted, he admitted that parts of it he recognized as true, but other parts just confused him. You can just feel the deep internal struggle that this message was causing.
Even the guys they sent to try and negotiate with the prophet were completely overwhelmed. Utbah ibn Rabi'a went to offer him a deal, but after just listening to a recitation, he came back to his people all shaken up, saying he'd heard something profound, totally unlike anything he knew, and basically told them to just back off.
And then there's al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, a man famous for being the top literary critic of his day. He confessed in private that the message was beautiful, powerful, and totally unique. But because of political pressure, he was forced to come up with some way to publicly denounce it. They all knew. They knew they were dealing with something completely extraordinary.
So this incredibly powerful message, and the equally powerful opposition to it, brings up a fundamental question. Right? If the message was so clear and so potent, why was it accepted by some people and just fiercely rejected by others? Well, the source points to a metaphor from the Quran for the answer.
The first part of the metaphor states a really simple truth. A response is only possible from those who are actually listening, the ones who are receptive to it.
The second part presents this really stark contrast. It describes another group as being spiritually dead, meaning their ability to respond is just gone. Their case is left to a higher power.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the central argument. The issue isn't a lack of evidence or proof. The message is actually designed to connect with our own human nature. The living are the people whose hearts and minds are open enough to feel that connection. The dead, on the other hand, are those whose pride or ambition or prejudice have basically shut down their ability to hear. It makes them unresponsive, no matter how powerful the argument is.
This entire strategy, from turning down all the popular causes to focusing on this one single abstract idea, well, it leaves us with a pretty profound final thought about the nature of change itself.
Is it possible that any lasting political, social, or moral reform can only happen after a society has fundamentally redefined who or what holds the ultimate authority? The source material we've explored today argues exactly that. Before you can fix the world, you first have to answer the question of who truly has the right to rule.